Welcome to Wait What? Sportsbiz Chat with DP and McGhee, the podcast that takes an often irreverent, sometimes cynical, and on occasion even a serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, David Parro.
And I'm Tim McGhee.
Now, I hope everyone here in the States had a happy and safe Thanksgiving. I'm still recovering a bit, if I'm being honest. It's a huge week ahead for the future of NASCAR, a lot of craziness around college football, of course. And Tim, somehow my Bears are atop the NFC. I don't know how that happened. I do not see any visible scars or wounds on you. I'm assuming you stayed out of the Black Friday fray. But what's on your mind?
Well, first I want to know why you're still recovering. Were you out at the bar with all your college or high school buddies who came home for the holiday, or
just
what?
To sleep, just to sleep. Yeah. You've heard that. Like, that's the biggest party day going, right? No, it's just a sleep thing. Just a sleep thing.
All right. What's on my mind? Lane Kiffin. We have been talking, some people would say ad nauseum, about the coaching carousel in college football this year. But Lane Kiffin sort of brought it to a whole new level. He's coaching the most successful team in Ole Miss history. They win the Egg Bowl over Mississippi State. And 2 days later, he announces that he's leaving for LSU. And then gets upset that people in the university don't want him to coach in the playoffs, or give him another month to try to recruit his players to leave Ole Miss and go to follow him to LSU. LSU and Governor Landry of Louisiana, who said the contract with the new coach would be nothing like the one with Brian Kelly. He wasn't dishonest. He wasn't wrong. But I don't think what anybody had in mind. There's no offset, right? So if Kiffin gets fired without cause, he gets whatever's, I think 80% of whatever's left on his contract, and there's no adjustment should he take another job. You know, I think we have a tendency to forget the past. Kiffin was fired by Nick Saban. Nick Saban.
Wow, talk about old school.
Yeah, I guess Lou Saban didn't like the way he handled the electric company on the offensive line, protecting OJ. No, he was fired by Nick Saban prior to the championship game. He was fired on the tarmac at USC. He was fired by Al Davis. So let's, why did Nick Saban fire him? It was ineffective.
Well, and he was also focused on the next job he was already taking. Okay. He wanted to keep coaching while he was about to take the Florida Atlantic job. So, I mean, it mattered, and it matters in this case.
So if LSU thinks that they're going to get this guy who's going to bring them to the promised land and isn't going to be necessarily looking for his next job, or isn't necessarily going to be ineffective, because when was the last time they won a championship with Joe Burrow?
With Joe Burrow.
Yeah. So they've been to the promised land. I don't know if Lane Kiffin's the guy who gets them back, but.
So yeah, what's the reason he goes? He's not getting any more money, I don't think, in the core piece of the contract, but a huge commitment on the NIL side.
Yeah, I think
it's just a giant bank account to try to sign players.
The number I heard was $25 million.
Yeah.
So, which again we have talked about. I think that is the big issue that needs to be addressed within college football. That and the transfer portal.
So I'm glad you mentioned the transfer portal, and this is why the hypocrisy in college sports just continues to be, it's rank, and why I think you and I have supported the idea that athletes are finally getting paid or being able to monetize their NIL, and that in the past they couldn't move. They literally were locked into place or had to pay a severe penalty, while coaches never had to do that. While I think it's awful that coaches are being fired with the frequency that they have been in the middle of the season, they've always been able to move with no real penalty. In fact, being able to be, I think, rewarded quite handsomely for those type of moves. Obviously, Lane Kiffin knows how to coach. He knows how to take programs and build them stronger. They had a great program at Ole Miss, and they were a legit contender for a national championship. and now he won't be coaching. And I think he wonders, listen, one of the interviews with Marty Smith from ESPN on the tarmac, he's always on the tarmac.
Yeah. For better or worse.
Right.
Literally.
And he's getting obliterated when he's leaving in Oxford from Ole Miss fans. And he said, listen, I totally respect the decision of the athletic director, and it was their decision. And SVP had a interesting take on it. I think it was his, that it was like basically getting caught cheating on your wife, but telling your family that you wanted to stay through Christmas, and then you'd leave after. I mentioned before we came on air, we have some guests in with us from Florida, and my friend Mike Bennett, who is as big a Gator fan as Keith Cutler is. Let's put it that way. And so you know what that means. And he's disliked Lane Kiffin forever. He hates him because he's a super big college football fan, and if he's not coaching your team, you hate him. It seems to be the normal course. But he's like, yeah, he would have been pretty psyched, I think, if Lane Kiffin ended up as the Gators coach.
Yeah. Mike Bennett is a character from James Patterson's books, which I read frequently. I'm in the middle of one right now.
He's also a politician, Michael Bennett.
Yeah.
From Colorado.
Yep. But before we get off this topic, let's just not the topic of your friend Mike Bennett, the topic of Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. These poor kids are now thrown in. Now they've had the greatest season that any of them have ever had, and now they're thrust into a situation where there's a new coach who's going to be running practices. Now, yes, he's been part of the staff and they're familiar with him, but it's a very difficult time for young men to have to make that sort of adjustment going into the SEC championship game, going into the playoffs. And it's unfortunate that they're subjected to this.
I agree. And the last thing I want to say on that is that you look at we talk NIL, we talk transfer portal, but the calendar needs to change to some degree, meaning setting some limits on when coaching decisions can be made. And now with the CFP taking college football out to the time it does, it's totally not fair. To your point on these kids, is that we just got to change that window. But the power conferences, particularly the SEC and the Big Ten, have the ability to constantly be recruiting and constantly have their eye on these coaches. I agree. I think it's totally unfair, and it kind of takes all of the great fun out of this, because it would have been interesting to see him participate with Ole Miss in the college football playoff, and now we're not going to see that. But I will tell you this, I'll be cheering for those guys.
Yeah, me too. All right. Let's call the glue factory, because we got a dead horse here we need to get rid of.
All right. I think we need to talk about something we've talked about a lot, because I think it is very significant, and that is that yesterday representatives of 2311 and Front Row Motorsports appeared in a federal district court in North Carolina, along with representatives of NASCAR, to start the trial of this lawsuit that's going on between those race teams and NASCAR over the charter system. And I don't think we predicted that. I think my guess was that it was going to settle before it got to this point. District Judge Kenneth Bell was really pleading with the parties to try to get this thing settled before, and I think he recognized that it could do damage to the sport. But they were all dug in, really dug in, and it seems like they got dug in even more. And it's been tough to watch, because people we know are involved in this case, and some of the emails and texts, many of which could have been taken out of context as to what they were truly trying to say or convey, have been released as part of the discovery on this, and it's just been a mess. And then yesterday, the most dramatic piece of yesterday's court session was Denny Hamlin appearing on the stand, talking about his father who's ill, and breaking down, but laying down why they feel the system is not fair. And it now comes down to not truly allowing them to capitalize and monetize their potential values. While NASCAR's position is that NASCAR, the sanctioning body, has increased the value of what these teams are. Both things could be true, by the way, which is the tough thing that this case will end up having to determine.
Yes, there is still a potential for a settlement, especially with Rick Hendrick and Roger Penske scheduled to take the stand. Apparently, neither one of them feels they signed up for this. But these are two of the most influential and successful owners in NASCAR. So I'm sure they have at least some sway over the powers that be within the sport. So I wouldn't be shocked if this is settled at some point before it goes to the jury. I also know that the plaintiff, I don't know if they're the plaintiffs or the defendants, but the guys at 2311 and Front Row Motorsports are pretty confident going into this trial.
Yeah, they are.
I haven't spoken to anybody on the NASCAR side. I don't know if they share that same level of confidence, but it reminds me of the old Dire Straits song, "Industrial Disease." Two men say they're Jesus, one of them must be wrong.
Dude, it's one of my favorite Dire Straits songs. I love that song, and I love that line. The plaintiffs are 2311 and Front Row. Defendant is NASCAR in this particular case. And I do think that there were a number of things, rulings at least, coming from the judge, say the month before, that felt like there was reason for the teams to have confidence going into this. I mean, both sides are have unbelievable lawyers on their sides, right?
Yeah.
I did want to add one more thing, and because I know you've worked closely with him, and I did some work with him back in the day. Richard 𝗘𝗽𝗀, another influential owner in the sport, got kind of dragged into this recently, with communications being shown from Commissioner Steve Phelps to other people, complaining a lot about 𝗘𝗽𝗀's view that the new car was just costly and wasn't advancing the sport and that type of thing, and Steve Phelps feeling had a slightly different opinion on Richard 𝗘𝗽𝗀, and that's the stuff that just got ugly, like stuff that they never wanted to get out, obviously, and stuff that's probably said in the heat of the moment, probably not smart. I'm sure Steve Phelps wishes he had some of that back, or a lot of that back. But now, 𝗘𝗽𝗀 gets is all up in arms, and I guess I understand that about the position of NASCAR and may want to sue. So I don't know where he ends up falling on the side of this, if that helps or hurts.
Again, yeah, you're right. A very influential owner, may not have had as many championships in recent years as Hendrick or Penske, but still, one of the old school. And still very, very successful race team owners. It's, on a personal level, I hate to see him be dragged into this because I think very highly of Richard.
Well, another thing that got mentioned during testimony yesterday, and, because me more than you always likes to make it about the show, he testified, Denny Hamlin is a co-owner with Michael Jordan and Curtis Polk of 2311.
Mm-hmm.
President of that team is past guest Steve Valletta. Another past guest, Dave Alpern, just a few weeks ago came on and talked about that relationship with 2311, and that 2311 was a customer team of Joe Gibbs Racing. It came out in the testimony that Denny Hamlin testified that his team pays Joe Gibbs Racing $8 million annually for that alliance to basically pay for all the stuff that comes over. Just, because we talked about that particular relationship, didn't say the number during that show, but I thought that was interesting that came out as part of that testimony.
Yeah, I think I think that's just one data point that shows what kind of numbers we're talking about here.
Yeah, and then one of the other expert economists that came on, obviously from the race team side, testified that the team should receive a larger share of NASCAR's revenue and based that analysis on Formula One and what their valuations have gone to, which I thought was kind of interesting. And we're going to hear stuff from both sides. I think the one thing that the stuff that's going to be reported is going to be the most, I guess, salacious or clickbaity of the quotes, but we're also going to have Michael Jordan walking into court every day. It's expected to be 2 weeks. Who knows how long this thing goes, and maybe they do settle. But Michael Jordan going into court every day is something worthy of the sports news covering.
Yeah, they had the Morning Buzz. His photo was in the Morning Buzz this morning, and I'm sure it will be all over the media. To your point,
yeah,
and say what you want, Michael is one of the most competitive people on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he will spare no expense or effort to prevail in this case.
Well, we are going to be watching it very closely, of course. What else do you have, big story-wise?
Major League Soccer is going to be in a very bright spotlight this weekend with Messi and the rest of his teammates at Inter Miami hosting Vancouver Whitecaps and Thomas Müller. So I think it's going to be a great match. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to go down to see it. I'm thinking about it, doing an up and back because the match is 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. But yeah, Müller's has competed against Messi many times, most notably beating Argentina when he represented Germany in the 2010 and 2014 World Cup. But Messi is just playing out of this world if you've been following the playoffs at all.
Messi has, I would say, has been the face of MLS, and that's been a good thing. As we've talked about a lot, he's still playing at a very high level, and it seems to he's even stepped it up more. And then you have this other great international star in Thomas Müller, a German player who brings that much more attention to it, and he seems to be playing at a pretty high level. Neither of these guys are young by pro athlete standards, but yeah, I think an exciting to see Miami make it to this this final in the Audi MLS Cup is exciting, certainly for the sport, and all of those that were behind bringing Lionel Messi to MLS obviously are not only patting themselves on the back, but feeling pretty good about it.
The only thing comparable, I think, is when Beckham came over and he partnered or played with Landon Donovan and they won back-to-back. LA Galaxy won back-to-back MLS Cups. I think it was 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
But Beckham was a superstar celebrity and a great soccer player, but Messi's the GOAT. And I worked with the Red Bulls during the time that Thierry Henry was there, and he was always the best player on the pitch, bar none. But this is a whole new level.
I think it's a whole new level, and not only that, we're heading into a World Cup year. We just had the announcement that MLS is moving to the international calendar.
Mm-hmm.
This timing for this couldn't be better, I think, for the league. So it is absolutely wonderful, and I'm excited about that. We're going to be talking in a bit about some other stuff going on in South Florida this weekend in the football soccer space, so that's good. Before we do take a break, I do want to, because we've talked about MLB quite a bit, but we haven't had a chance to talk about the new media deals that were struck in November for this year, finalized a 3-year deal, so it's not a super long, but with the ESPN, NBC Universal back in the picture on NBC with Major League Baseball, which is, I think, huge. Netflix coming on for some live games, and then ESPN taking rights for MLB TV. So another, piece where, ESPN and league kind of getting more in bed. So I'm excited about this, and NBC is going to be taking the Sunday night game, so it fits in with that branding concept. They have Sunday night football, of course, and now we'll be having a Sunday night baseball game. Apple, which we thought was going to be removed from baseball, is going to continue on with the Friday night game, so that doesn't really change. Netflix is going to have the Home Run Derby and do the Field of Dreams games, which seems perfect, right? Like special type of programming, but live activity. So I think the important thing to watch is where the money in this and how much this deal becomes part of the CBA negotiations that I suspect will be carrying on in both like behind the scenes a little bit at the early part of the season, but intensify. But with these things in the can, how do they affect the ability for MLB to be able to go, listen, here's how we're restructuring this. This is what we want to do from a, yes, they may want a hard cap, but here's what we want to do about a floor, and here's the extra money that's going to be flowing in from a percentage standpoint. So I'd love to see this become part of making the negotiation a little easier so we get to the end of 2026 season without a threat of a lockout or a strike.
Yeah, and let's, it's very easy to criticize Rob Manfred for any number of things that he's done, but he did say when ESPN opted out of this deal, he did say that he believed that he could maintain financial integrity and get even more money. And he has. So ESPN got what they want, but MLB got more at the end of the day, got more money than they had gotten under the previous deal. So under the cliche, a rising tide helps all boats, Tony Clark and the Players Association have to realize that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think baseball's coming off an amazing year with great stars, people that are fun to follow and that have, global appeal. And yeah, it'll be great to see that showcased in new ways via these partners. So I'm excited to see how that all shakes out, how it's presented. We know they want to go to a national concept, from a almost kind of a nationalized RSN type situation, and with the partners they have in place, I think they're positioning themselves to be able to do that. What do you say? Take a break. We're going to welcome a guest that we've been wanting to get on for a while, and we think the timing's perfect, so we'll be right back.
It's time for our guest.
So we are back and very excited to welcome our guest today. Since beginning this show in 2022, I have lost a fair amount of shame in asking potential guests to come on the show. It took a while and I embarrassed myself more than once with my persistence here, but we're thrilled to be joined by Sarah Cummins, the CEO of World Sevens Football and one of the most versatile executives in the sports industry. Before being named to the helm of this exciting new property, Sarah has held leadership positions across a whole slew of top properties, including WTA, WWE, New York Roadrunners, and USTA, and has also operated her own successful advisory, Cashmere Ventures. She was named an SBJ Game Changer in 2017, which we've had you're like the fourth or fifth Game Changer we've had on, so I'm excited about that. There's not much Sarah hasn't seen or done in this business other than appear on Wait What, and we're fixing that today. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it very much. David, so nice to see you. Tim, this is the first time we're meeting, but really excited about that as well. And your persistence had nothing to do with my, sussing out if this was the right pod for me. As you know, in this business, it's a wild ride all the time. And I wanted to make sure I'd be really prepared and ready to chat. And I'm so excited to be sitting here today to talk to you about what I'm doing and this amazing team I work with at World Sevens Football.
Well, you and I have talked about having you on the show for a while, and I think we're finally doing it at absolutely the perfect time because you are about to go into a very major event, the World Sevens Football Tournament. First one being played in the U.S., second one overall, specifically in Fort Lauderdale, and that is the 5th through the 7th of this weekend. So give our listeners an overview of that event. I mean, we'll speak more broadly about World Sevens, but talk about this specific event coming up. What can people expect and how can they tune in?
Sure. Well, this is the inaugural edition of World Sevens here in North America, and we couldn't be more excited to be hosting it in Fort Lauderdale this weekend at beyond Bankard Field. And for those that don't know what World Sevens is, it is 7-on-7 women's soccer with the best professional clubs in the world, fielding a team for an incredible, intense, action-packed, high-stakes drama, because there's a $5 million prize pool for these 8 clubs that they're fighting for, which is pretty remarkable and pretty, I think, noteworthy in women's soccer. So we couldn't be happier to be here this weekend. We've got some of the best athletes and players in the world coming in to play. And to add that, to be here in South Florida this week, I mean, this is the epicenter of soccer this week in the world, we feel like, right? We've got the MLS Cup down the street. Last night we saw the U.S. women's national team play Italy, and couldn't be happier to be here.
So World Sevens is a new property. It was formed earlier this year. You've had one event in the inaugural event, which took place in Portugal. You give us a little bit of the background, but give us more of the history of the concept. What is the mission of World Sevens? And just give us a little bit more flavor, if you will.
Well, look, I think that first and foremost, our mission is to create, paid playing opportunities for women footballers, right? And the founders of this organization, I think they really just saw a gap in the market for this 7-on-7 format. It comes with all of the right ingredients that actually line up with what's going on across the media and consumption ecosystem, right? Because it's 7-on-7, it's intense, it's fast, there's a lot of goals, it moves very quickly. We've designed the rules so there's no stoppage. They're just rotating players in and out. And we think that the way that content comes to life and how that gets served is right for the audience. And we know from what we did in Portugal, from the clubs that came, from the people that attended and the people that consumed that content at the time, largely through DAZN, the metrics on it, we said, there's something here. People like this. People want more of this. Let's continue to explore this, and let's forge ahead, and let's build a sports property where ultimately our ambition will be to have, 4 to 6 of these events every year all over the globe, bringing the best of women's football together to face off. This one is for a very large and significant prize pool. We anticipate that will continue. There could be other formats around that, maybe regional events. But we also think, and one of the things we're doing this weekend in Florida is we're hosting a youth tournament side by side, again, for girls, U9, 10, 11, 12, and on the 7-on-7 format. So we think that, right, that old, if you see it, you can be it. We're sort of plugging that hole with this format. So we're really excited about where it's going to take us.
That leads us into another thing that we wanted to discuss with you, because obviously the sport of football on a global basis is a massive ecosystem, right, with a lot of different federations and different controlling parties. So how are you looking at World Sevens as in terms of growing the sport, from a fan base and a participation base, again, which is another major goal usually of the various governing bodies that control the sport?
Yeah, well, you've hit the nail on the head with the gigantic ecosystem that is football, and truly global, with just matches every week in and week out. It reminds me a lot of the business I just came from on the tennis side, where, again, they literally play all year. So it's really the same over here. So it will be critical for us, and it has been, in bringing the clubs that we are bringing in this weekend, to form those relations with federations and governing bodies, to ensure that we can find that space on the calendar to make it feasible to even bring the clubs together. That is truthfully going to be one of our most sort of challenging and places we're going to have to be the most strategic in doing that work with these clubs and federations. I think that sort of pivot a little bit to this weekend, We are going to have coverage on, DAZN is our host broadcaster. TNT is going to carry this in the US and is full studio setup on site at this event. We've got Univision covering for Mexico, and we've got ESPN LATAM with some wide-ranging coverage. And so how that plays in to both our positioning in the market as just an additive property that creates more playing opportunities, which will build more awareness for these clubs and these superstars. I'm well trained. You mentioned some of the organizations I've worked for and spent some time at the USTA, a lot of time in tennis at the WTA and with the WWE. And we, in all of those places, but no place more so than WWE, we talk about star power and the importance of star power, right? And we know that across these properties, that fans, they follow stars, they follow athletes, right? And they want to know those stories. And we had an amazing conversation last night with our executive producer from TNT when we were over at the women's national team game. And he was talking about bringing these stories to life. And he talked a little bit about some of the clubs that are coming from South America that they've been, really digging into the rosters and these women. And for some of these women, they're coming here for the first time. That the prize pool and the opportunity, the winning club will go home with $2 million, that can be game changing for that women's club and for those athletes on that team. And so that's where this becomes really important to the ecosystem. Building that awareness, showing the just the incredible ability, capability, and accomplishments of these clubs, and continuing to build their franchises, and then the star power of the women on those clubs. So this is just one more opportunity to do it. And when you've got this sort of like spectacle, festival, high energy format that's going to lend itself really well to the broadcast, it's putting those clubs in just another position to bring that to their fan base and hopefully bring in new fans for their club.
You mentioned star power. The star power extends beyond just the women on the pitch. You have a really impressive and accomplished advisory group, including some of the biggest names in women's soccer, Americans Toby Heath and Kelly O'Hara, British star Anita Asante, and others. Excuse me. How would you characterize the enthusiasm of these women, the players in general, across the globe for World Sevens?
Yeah. So, I didn't know what to expect when I came in here. I only came here middle of September, so I've only been here for a couple months. And about 1 week in, we had our first call with our advisory council. And we have that call every single week. We've got 7 or 8 advisors. They make themselves available every single week. And we bring to them really all of the components of what we're creating, from here's what the player experience is. Here's how we're looking to, improve it or massage it from the event in Portugal. Here's how we're thinking about broadcast. We went from 3 cameras to 11. Here's the talent, list that they're thinking of. What do you think? And they literally weigh in on every single one of these aspects. They weigh in on the youth tournament that we're having next door, that they will all get out of their seats and go over there at some point and participate with those kids. I think it's one of the things I have been most wildly impressed with at this property is not just the investment of their time, right, but of their passion and their knowledge, and they're willing to connect us with others across the industry and the sport to really make World Sevens, everything that it can be, and, live out the vision that the people that are across this have for it, themselves included. They really believe in the format. And I know that, I was just a couple of weeks in, and we had a meeting with the NWSL Players Council, and there was, 15 players on there. And Kelly O'Hara was making that pitch with us and really just answering their questions. And it was like we could just kind of sit back, because the way she talked about the event in Portugal, she was talking to these athletes and saying, like, this you'll see it's going to remind you of all of the things you loved about this as a kid and how you got into this. This is, and for many of the clubs, right, their seasons have ended. I think this is one of the things I love most about where we are in the calendar for this one. For many of them, their season has ended. And so it's their opportunity with their teammates to come into a beautiful venue, to stay at an incredible property, which we've surrounded with great events, from the welcome party to the wrap party, all of the amenities. And it's like they can just sort of like let their shoulders down and they can play, right? And they can play with like fierceness and passion and go after this, $2 million prize as a group, in a very, very different way than when they're in season or the other pressures that they have, which are a lot. So we're really excited about that. I would say from the beginning, we have kept the player experience sort of at the forefront and at the center of what we're building.
I want to follow up right on that particular comment that you just made. The money aspect, obviously, is important. Money is always important, but it sounds as though the pitch goes a little beyond that. But has that money, that monetary prize, which is very significant? I mean, I think when you talked about it at the early part of this discussion, you saw the look on our faces. It's like, wow, that's pretty solid. Obviously the teams want to go for that are participating, and then the players, whatever their cut is on that. But how much of the storyline are you making that, or is it just another aspect of just this an overall exciting pitch? Because it sounds like when Kelly was talking about it, she's talking about it from a broader perspective.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the way we've structured the prize pool, that's just a sort of an example of taking these world-class clubs and paying them what they're worth, and sort of saying, of course we'd be doing that. Why wouldn't we be doing that? That's what we're doing. Right. But what I would say is, for these clubs that are coming and participating, and in our, since they've been selected, was a real feeling of pride about being selected. Right. So let me just roll it back for a second. We've got from the US, the KC Current, the San Diego Wave. We've got AFC Toronto, who won almost all of these clubs that I'm going to mention have won their division, right? AFC Toronto from Mexico. We've got Club America, which has a great, huge following, and Tigres. We've got Flamengo out of Brazil. We've got Nacional out of Uruguay, and Deportivo Cali out of Colombia. All of them winning their division. And so more than anything, they've been really excited about the opportunity to sort of face off against this competition in a totally different format, right? On this smaller pitch, shorter game, 30 minutes, 2 15-minute halves, just wall-to-wall action, high scoring, just sort of with the ability to sort of play with like reckless abandon against these clubs. And I think, and they're all competitors, right? That's what they do for a living. So they're, as much as anything, they're just excited about the competition, and this being sort of a new version of competition with their, teammates to experience together. And then we've wrapped it with just all of the best for them, from sort of the player lounge that they'll have available to them. I mean, all these clubs are actually going to stay on site and watch each other play, right? And we've built this amazing, player experience at the venue. They've got the same thing at the hotel, down by the beach where they're staying. And so I think that's what they're most excited about, is just the competitive nature, but the spirit of excitement and sort of the joy and the fun that's going to come with it.
I'd like to go back. You were talking about your broadcast partners, DAZN and TNT and Univision. Are those long-term deals right now, or are you leaving yourself some flexibility for the long term? How are those structured, and what's sort of the long-term media strategy for World Sevens?
So this is the first year of World Sevens. This is only our second event. So the majority of those deals are on the shorter side, as everybody wants to sort of come together as we think about our future. I think we have a good sense for what our roadmap will probably be for 26. And I can tell you that all of those partners have just been very committed to, let's build the right user experience. Like let's take this competition, which definitely feels different, right? And let's build the content to serve the fan base that's going to love this. And so we have very close working relationships with all of those entities that you just named. We'll figure out our future sort of together. There's also a lot of social content coming to bear. I mean, our plate is full with content creators that want to come check this out. So the media strategy is going to be to sort of right size what we're producing and optimize it for what's happening on the field, right? And building that production in a way that it will serve all of that, and then just get this out onto all of the right distribution channels so that people can experience it. And again, as much as anything, this is a new format. We really are looking to bring new fans into the sport for something like this, right? And we're hoping all this can feed our grassroots business. We think that there's really an ability to probably replicate having these 7-on-7 girls' youth tournaments surrounding these events in these locales. So all of it is sort of meant to feed each other.
We've talked a fair amount about World Sevens. I want to take a slightly different look. Is we talked about in the introduction, you have a background, you and I have known each other for a while. Why was this opportunity, this specific opportunity, so appealing to you?
I will say this, everybody who knows me knows I have a really strong love and passion for tennis. I've been in that business a long time in a couple of different versions. I will always have that, and I will always be a super fan as it relates to tennis and the stars of that game. But when I met Jen 𝗘𝗃cie, the co-founder, back in the spring, and she talked about what they were building, they had just come off the event in Portugal, and she was still a bit on a high from that, but also really understood that there's so much opportunity. There's so many things we can evolve and grow and change. And I think we're onto something here. And we're going to plow straight forward and have this event, in the back half of the year. And as I spent time with her and I heard about the vision for this property, which is much of what I just described we're creating for this weekend, it was too exciting not to say yes to it. I think Dave, my background is largely on the commercial side, but I've also worked on the commercial side at some of the best and biggest sporting events in the world, and so I've had played a role in the live event business, and what they described that they were building from a live event standpoint, I found incredibly appealing. Add to it that this is the largest sport in the world, on the planet. Soccer, football, whatever you call it, wherever you live. And that to me was a huge appeal, to go be a part of that, to go where we've seen the women's football business really take some incredible strides in the past few years and take shape, and just having the opportunity to go jump in on that with a totally new, fresh, sort of startup, innovative sports property that was built with players at the center, but to bring it to, a new fan base. It was such an easy one. So I'm, thrilled to be here, still learning a lot. That's a big one for me. I am wildly curious, and I love to learn new things and sort of understand how they're built and created. So my colleagues have been amazing at bringing me into the soccer business and building up my expertise. And we have so many great soccer professionals around us that I feel like, while hugely supported in that, but it's so innovative at exactly the right time in women's sports. And they had the proof of concept, and I said, I want to be a part of the future of that.
I want to dig a little bit more deeply. You mentioned the fact that your background is primarily on the commercial side. How was your experiences, whether it's at WTA, the WWE, USTA, etc.? How has that experience sort of prepared you or informed how you approach your role as CEO of the World Sevens?
I would say that, anyone who's working in one of these many new startup sports properties, right? You have to understand the levers and the value that you can drive essentially into the sports asset class, right? What it's stood up on. And that's where the commercial background is so critical to the future of what we're building. If we don't build this correctly, where it's got this ability to drive value for media, building that fan base, brand partners, all of those components of it, right? The wild amount of content, like really creating a tonnage of content that we can put out there to build the fan base. And then the fan base is going to be where the whole value of the flywheel sustains us long term, right? That's what we've got to build. And so you've got to understand that from a commercial standpoint, how to do that so that you can make decisions appropriately. I can't tell you, I mean, I've only been here a few days, and we're going to be here till, next Monday, but everything, of course, the competition has to be, fierce and full of integrity and the best experience the players can have. And then the capturing of that content and bringing it to the world, everything we're doing, we're looking at through the content lens and saying, okay, how will this be experienced, right? And how do we drive value to those partners at DAZN and TNT and Univision and ESPN LATAM? They are the ones that are telling the stories of these women and of this competition, right? And first and foremost, tell the story of the competition, because there's quite a bit at stake. So let's make sure those, the match is being presented that way, and then tell the surrounding stories of the athletes. So we're looking through that lens in everything we're doing. And that's really where my commercial background becomes so important. Again, like I said, I feel so supported by the strong sort of football expertise that we have in this organization to ensure that the first part of that absolutely happens. And then where I can, add that value and help to lead the team is to ensure that we are building assets and experiences and, delivery mechanisms to ensure that those partners are having the best experience, getting more out of it than they anticipated or, than was their ambition when they wanted to partner with us. And I think the most important piece to that is just being a great listener, right? We're so lucky. We have so many great partners across this, incredible event that we will stage this weekend, and making sure those relationships are highly, highly collaborative, and knowing when to say, you know more about that than we do. Okay, let's go that route, TNT. That sounds like a great change. That's how we'll look at this.
I love the way that you described your distribution partners as the people presenting the story, and that kind of shows what that partnership is. That was a great way, I think, for all of us in this business to think about it. By the way, in addition to all your commercial and sponsorship background and event background, you also have a great licensing background. So, Sarah, I am expecting like a massive merch and various other creative licensing stuff coming out around this property. Maybe not for this holiday season, but down the road.
Stay tuned. Yeah, that is absolutely the plan. And on the roadmap, as you know, we need to build the credibility and the awareness for this brand. And but we think Sevens has lots of legs.
Yeah. Okay, we know you have a lot of things that you are working on, so we are going to get you out of here fairly soon, but we have two final questions that we like to ask of every guest, and they're very, very standard. The first one is, where did you get your start in the sports business?
Oh, gosh. I had my start in the place, in the sport that was so much a part of my sort of family unit, which was in baseball. I had an internship when I was 18 years old for the New York Mets. I will forever be a lifelong New York Mets fan. I got a lot out of that internship. I worked for a guy named Jim Ross, who will always be one of my favorite people in this business, JR. I really, I got a lot of lessons, right? And the biggest lesson was the team's got to win, right? We can work as hard as we want. I was a marketing intern. And, there I was. Sometimes we were working 21 days in a row. You've got the homestand, you get through that, you come back to work on Monday morning. But my family has deep ties to baseball. And so that is where I got my start. And coming out of that, I met a guy who took me out I had a date in the bullpen. He bought lunch. We got married 6 years later. And so we have 3 more Mets fans beyond him and I. So that is part of our contribution to the world. And so it's a pretty important piece to my history and my story for my family.
And then the final question is, it's a little tougher than the first one, Sarah.
Okay. Let me take a drink.
But one piece of advice you would give someone looking to break into the sports business?
That's actually a kind of an easy one for me. And people that know me know I dole out a lot of advice. I'm always sort of happy to share it. I have 3 children, 22, 21, and 19, and they all have ambitions to work in this business. One of them does. The other one is still in a internship role, hoping to land her permanent job. But the thing I tell people all the time is you've got to be wildly crazy persistent in your pursuit of wanting to break into this business, and take any little step forward that you can, whether that's you've got a friend who knows someone else that they're going to introduce you to, and you're going to ask for a call to just learn more about the role that they're in and sort of try to glean some advice from that. There is nothing that is too small, and just be relentless in the pursuit of those opportunities. But you have to make them for yourself, literally. You have to, if you choose the path where you're going to college, you have to go, volunteer in the athletic department, and volunteer unpaid. Oh, we need someone to go out and be a sort of a flag director at a cross country meet this weekend. Okay, I'm going to do that. Right? I'm putting that on my resume that I was, assisting the cross country team, at my local university. Every little piece is a step forward and is an opportunity to meet someone. And I imagine you two would reinforce what I'm about to say, which is the people in this business are incredibly generous with their time, because we're so passionate about being here. We feel so lucky to work in this industry. So those people that you meet when you go do that one little thing, or your friend introduces you, your mom's cousin introduces you to someone that they know that works in sports, just ask for the call. I'll make myself available anytime. I won't take more than 20 minutes of your time if I could just ask you some questions, right? Constantly pursuing those things and then putting yourself out there oftentimes for unpaid opportunities to just get some reps and build a little bit of, road under your feet, and then meeting those people and just constantly asking for advice, conversation, introductions to other people that they know. You got to be a mad networker is pretty much my biggest piece of advice.
We appreciate that. You put a lot of context into that piece, so appreciate it. Believe it or not, that's it. See, it wasn't too bad, right?
No, it's great.
All right. Listen, Sarah, you are someone that I admire so greatly, and your versatility in this business and your ability to do things across so many different roles and properties has always impressed. So we wish you an amazing amount of good fortune, but we know that the event is in good hands with you at the helm. So best of everything, and we'll be watching. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Tune in.
Good
TNT.
luck this weekend. Yep.
Thank you.
Certainly. Yep.
Wonderful. And thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about World Sevens with your mad fan base.
It's that's a good way to describe it. Pretty much is. They're mad. They're mad at everything we say, pretty much.
Well, we hope we can convert a few of them to go check out World Sevens this weekend on TNT. So thank you for the time.
We will do it.
thank you again to Sarah Cummins, CEO of World Sevens Football, and best of luck to Sarah and all the players competing this weekend in Fort Lauderdale. So, David, now is the time in the show where we take a look forward. We give out shout-outs, kudos. So what's on your mind?
Listen, there's some exciting things to look for. I'm very much looking forward to the college football playoff selection show on Sunday after the conference championships, because this could be very controversial. The ACC championship is between Duke and Virginia. Don't normally expect those two teams in the championship. There's the outside chance that Duke, with 5 losses, unfortunately Duke beat Wake Forest in the final game of the season.
Can we just say that by any measure, Bill Belichick's first year in the ACC was a failure?
It was a failure.
I mean,
by any measure.
Is there any measure by which it was successful? Is the other way to ask the question.
Well, I mean, they brought a ton of money, at least and focus on a program. But I would say that Drake May has been a much better ambassador for that program this year than Bill Belichick has, because of what he's doing at Bill Belichick's former, employer.
And they're refusing to really even acknowledge him as a product of the Tar Heel football program, which is ridiculous. The guy's probably going to be AFC Player of the Year.
So it is going to be, interesting, because the format of how teams get in, the top 5 highest ranked conference championships among those that are participating in the college football playoff will get automatic bids, basically. So it's a kind of a bizarre situation, and this year will be interesting because there's also going to be further discussion about whether or not this expands to more teams beyond the 12 that it currently has. So just an interesting time. Formula One will come down to an exciting finish in Abu Dhabi. In the last 2 years, I've been on the road for these 2 weeks, finishing the season in Qatar and then Abu Dhabi. And while it looked like McLaren, which had already clinched the Constructors' Championship, looked like they were running away with the World Drivers' Championship as well, with either Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris, but Max Verstappen has continued to rally and winning races. So there's a 3-way battle in the final race, which is good, I think, for everybody, because the legitimate criticism about Formula One racing is that there doesn't tend to be that much overtaking, and there wasn't in Qatar. So these guys are all going to be going out, on it from that first lap, and it could be pretty crazy heading into that first turn, as it often is in a Formula One race. So I am excited about watching that. We haven't had a chance to congratulate Gotham FC for winning the NWSL title. Since we talked a lot about football overall, I feel we should do that. A lot of movement going on. A fair amount of movement, I should say, in the WNBA, CBA negotiations. They have extended further to keep discussions open. The league has upped their salary max. So some things happening there, at least, to hopefully keep that from going into a lockout or strike situation. And if you want to watch the Super Bowl Shuffle documentary on HBO Max, I'm in kind of Bears mode, because, as I said, the Bears somehow are atop at least right now, this second, atop the home field advantage, if you will, for the NFC. I don't expect that will last, but I was in Bears mode, so I watched the HBO Max documentary on the Super Bowl Shuffle, because that was a big thing from my time in Chicago. It's that's all I'll say.
Huh. Interesting. All right. Congratulations to Hard Rock Cafe and Steve Cohen, owner of the Mets. They were awarded a casino license. That means that mixed-use development project around Citi Field is gonna move forward, and I'm really excited about what that looks like ultimately, because historically, you've had the tennis stadium and First Shea Stadium, now Citi Field, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of surrounded by either highways or chop shops.
The chop shop scene was unbelievable.
I mean, if you go out, out the east of Citi Field is Chop Shops. I mean, at least even Yankee Stadium at least had Stan's Sports Bar back when the South Bronx was terrible, right? So
I remember the first. Sorry to interrupt, but I remember the first meeting I went to at Citi, and it was while I was at Van Wagner, and I just hadn't seen it from that angle. And you go into like this main conference room, and you look outside the window, and it's just like, what is this?
Yeah, it's not, I think, when I've been to the Battery in Atlanta many times, that's sort of the model, I think, that most teams that are building this mixed use facility structure are trying to emulate. And so I'm really excited about that, but congratulations on getting that casino license. I don't know if it was always a done deal, but it is now. So, all right. So I think that's it. We will say goodbye to all our listeners. Thank you again to Sarah Cummins, CEO of World Sevens. Check it out this weekend on TNT. Please go to weightwhat.com. Right?
No.
That's our no. Okay.
I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Don't punish our listeners because I don't go to our website. dpandmcgee.com. Even in the website, you get top billing. Anyway,
what's the name of the show? We had this discussion.
No, we never did.
We can't reverse it on the URL. McGhee and DP.
I don't know.
I
might have to use my skills and create a shadow website.
That wouldn't be very good branding, would it?
No, but we follow the rules.
Yeah. Good point.
So go to dpandmcgee.com. You can find us where to get the podcast. We're on YouTube. We are on any platform that you like to get your podcast from. Subscribe, follow, like, share, tell your friends about us. We really do enjoy doing the show for our listeners. But until next week, he's DP, I'm McGhee, and we'll talk soon.